It happened on a Monday evening that started out as normal as any other. I'd just gotten home from work, ready for dinner and maybe a quiet night with my wife, Jenna. I opened the door, expecting to see her usual calm smile, but instead, I found suitcases in the hallway and a stranger standing in the living room, tall, well-dressed, holding a box of his belongings. Jenna stood beside him, arms folded, an unreadable expression on her face. "What's going on?" I asked, setting my bag down slowly. She took a deep breath, her voice clipped and confident. "This is Alex, my secretary. He's moving in." I blinked, thinking she must be joking. "Moving in? Here?" "Yes," she said firmly. "We've been working on a major project that requires long hours and close coordination. Having him stay here makes sense. It'll be temporary, but it's happening." I looked at her, trying to process the absurdity of it. "You didn't even talk to me about this?" "There's nothing to talk about," she said, her tone suddenly sharper. "You're gone half the day anyway, and this is about my work. If you don't like it," she paused, her eyes cold, "there's the door." The words hit harder than I expected. I stared at her, then at the man awkwardly pretending to check his phone. I could have exploded in anger, but instead, something in me went quiet. Dangerously quiet. "All right," I said evenly, "if that's how you want it." She seemed surprised by how calm I was. "So you're fine with it?" I smiled faintly. "Not exactly. But I've learned something about respect. You can't demand it. You earn it. And since this house is ours, every decision here is ours. You've just shown me how little my voice means to you." Her confidence wavered for the first time. "Don't make this dramatic, Ben. It's just work." "Work doesn't move into people's homes," I said quietly. "Work doesn't need my side of the closet. And work certainly doesn't tell a husband he can use the door." She opened her mouth to argue, but I raised a hand. "It's fine. You've made your choice. Now I'll make mine." Without another word, I walked to the study and pulled out a folder, one she'd forgotten existed. It contained the mortgage papers and the deed to the house. My name was the only one listed. When she'd moved in years ago, she never thought to change it. I came back into the living room and handed it to her. "Since you invited someone to stay here without asking, it's only fair I remind you whose name is on the door you mentioned." Her expression fell. "Ben, that's not necessary." "Oh, it is," I said, my voice calm but sharp. "I'm not throwing anyone out. I'm just setting boundaries. You wanted to stay? Fine, but I'll be moving out instead. You can cover the utilities, maintenance, and everything else until you decide how long your work arrangement lasts." She stared at me, shocked. "You're leaving? Just like that?" I nodded. "You told me to." The secretary, Alex, cleared his throat awkwardly. "Maybe I should go," he muttered, stepping back toward the door. "This doesn't seem professional anymore." "Smart man," I said, watching as he grabbed his suitcase and practically ran outside. When the door closed behind him, Jenna's anger flared. "You didn't have to humiliate me." "You humiliated yourself," I replied. "You wanted control, but all you showed was disrespect. You turned our marriage into a power play, and now you're realizing you don't hold as many cards as you thought." She stood there in silence, eyes glistening, not from sadness but frustration. "So what now?" she asked finally. "Now," I said, "you get to decide what you actually want, partnership or control. Because I won't stay married to someone who treats me like a tenant in my own home." I packed a small overnight bag that night and left. I didn't yell or slam the door. I just walked away, the sound of my footsteps echoing down the driveway like punctuation to a sentence she never expected me to finish. Over the next week, she called a few times, but I didn't answer. I needed space, real space, to think about what I wanted next. On the 6th day, she showed up at my friend's place where I'd been staying. She looked different, tired, remorseful. "Ben," she said softly, "I was wrong. I was trying to prove I could handle everything on my own, and I ended up disrespecting the one person who's always been in my corner." I didn't say anything at first. She went on, "I told Alex not to come back, and I've been thinking about what you said about partnership. I forgot that control means nothing if it costs respect. I sighed, finally meeting her eyes. Respect and communication are all I ever asked for, Jenna. If we can rebuild that, maybe we have a chance. She nodded quickly. I want that. I'll do better. I believed her, not because of her words, but because of her tone. It was the first time in a long while I'd heard honesty instead of defensiveness. That night, we talked for hours. No shouting, no blame. Just truth. And when I finally came home the next day, the living room was quiet again. No stranger's suitcase in sight. The air felt lighter, as if the house itself had taken a deep breath. Jenna looked at me as I set down my bag and said, "You're not the only one who learned something about boundaries." I smiled faintly. "Good," I said, "because from now on this house and this marriage will have them.